All right, welcome in to Big Hitters Only. This is going to be a basketball podcast, kind of recapping the Maui Invitational and looking ahead a little bit to Alabama. We're recording on Monday, December 2nd at 10:07 p.m. We have Connor Sparrow and we have Spenser Dalton. Spenser, this is your second appearance? Third,
I think, yeah.
Third after the Dayton one. We did not go live. We didn't record after the loss to Auburn or the loss to Michigan State due to the lateness of the games and then the Thanksgiving holiday. But we're back here on Monday night, getting you set, recapping that whole portion of the season and looking ahead to Bama. All right, we'll start with Spenser. I tasked y'all with kind of watching both games again or for the first time. What are some of your initial concerns you have with this UNC team? Let's just go through the scores real quick. The 92-90 win over Dayton on Monday night. The 85-72 loss to Auburn, which was a lot worse than the score indicated, I thought. Auburn might be the best team in the country. And then 94-91 overtime loss to Michigan State to close out the Maui Invitational. Spenser, the floor is yours. Take it wherever you want to take it.
So the biggest concern is definitely the slow starts. It jumps off the page. I mean, we go down 20 points, I think, in the first two games, in the first half, and then we go down, I think, 12, 14, 15 points, maybe something like that, against Michigan State in the first half. And that's a lot of points to give up in a first half. And it's for a couple of reasons, I think. Like, offensively, we look very stagnant and have a tough time just like getting in a rhythm quickly. Hard to say exactly why, but that seems to be the issue, is that offensively, we come out kind of flat. And then defensively, we kind of just get it taken right into our chins. I mean, Auburn in particular, Michigan State, Dayton as well. I think we kind of traded blows with Dayton. It was a close game for at least the first 6 or so minutes, but those first 4 to 6 minutes against Auburn and Michigan State, we were just getting blown out of the gym. So those things are really concerning, the slow starts. As well, I think overall, we have some offensive concerns, and overall, we have some defensive concerns that are not necessarily related to like which foot we get off of in a half or in a game. So we can talk a little bit about those issues, but the big one there is the slow starts. And you know, that's just a mental thing, really. That's just coming out and being willing to attack and being willing to just play really hard and play with attention to detail right from the tip and have that sense of urgency like we talked about in the last podcast.
Yeah, it's coming out and being ready to play, and whether that's on the players or the coaching staff or just the mentality and the sense of urgency. So that's pretty broad. Like, of course, like they're getting down early in the first half, but why? Like, why are they getting down? Connor, do you have any notes on kind of like things that are issues for you, maybe in the first half or just in general? Because I have two main things that I will talk about as well.
Yeah, mine goes off Spenser's point. Carolina faced double-digit deficits at halftime in all three games at Maui, topped off with allowing a season-high 94 points against Michigan State. And, you know, you told us to go back and rewatch some of these possessions. I was like, you know what? I've got some time before the podcast. Let me go back and rewatch it. By the way, I don't recommend it because the first half is brutal. At the under 16 timeout in the Michigan State game, Carolina was 0 for 7 from the field with 1 point. Listen to this. I tracked this manually. Only 2 of their first 9 possessions had more than 1 pass after crossing half court. 2 of their first 9 possessions, more than 1 pass. And if you watch it, it's noticeable. I wasn't even planning on doing that. And all of a sudden, I got into watching it, and I was like, it's a ball screen, and the ball handler drives into the lane, contested floater, off the 1 foot layup, contested over 2 people, and that's the offense.
Yeah.
To not pass the ball more than 1 time in a Carolina offense is egregious. So like you said, Spenser, slow starts, and we mentioned it in the Dayton Recap podcast. You can get away with it against teams that are a little more susceptible to big runs, maybe teams that are not in a Power 4 conference, Power 5 conference. Against better teams like Auburn or even Michigan State, that doesn't work. And they went 0-2 in those games, and I think that's a big reason why.
Yeah, in that Michigan State game, we didn't score a field goal until there were 14 and a half minutes left.
Yeah.
So we went 5.5 minutes without scoring a field goal.
Looks
Just
like
start
LA
the
Fitness
game. That
pickup
is
out there.
unheard of. That's unheard of. We had 2 points in 5.5 minutes, and they came from 2 separate trips to the free throw line.
I played pickup ball over Thanksgiving break. You could have gone down to the local YMCA and seen the exact same result, honestly. Dribble down, chuck a 3, 0 passes.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a hero ball. I think you texted us this, Spencer, that it's a lot of just dribbling and not really running an offense. You have some amazing offensive players, Elliot Cadeau and RJ Davis. I'll go with my 2 main things, and it's all connected. I think we have – I tweet this out. I think it's very basic, and it's not fixable. We have our two best guards on paper, and most important guards are 6 feet tall, or really 5'11". They're small. And you mentioned it, Connor, like driving to the lane and going against 2 defenders or a floater. RJ's floater's been off, but tons of blocks against those 2 guys and just really difficult level of shots in the lane, contested layups. Just they are small, and it's hard to score when you're small in Division I high-level basketball, and you can't fix that. You cannot grow mid-season very much.
Right.
So you have the 2 best players who are expected to play the most, RJ and Elliot Cadeau, who are fantastic players for what they do really well. They're going to have some issues. So you got to think about how they're going to avoid those issues. And I think they need to get out and transition more. I think our defense needs to force turnovers. You didn't see a lot of run-outs and easy baskets and 2-on-1s or 3-on-2s. They didn't have those easy shots at the rim before the defense was set. You had a lot of contested shots in the lane. So I think that's going to be a huge part of the offense is scoring in transition, because I think those guys are killer in transition. And you add Ian Jackson and a Drake Powell, 2 athletic, long perimeter players who can fly. They're going to be killer in transition as well. So that's got to be a big part of the offense. This is not going to be some dominant half-court team. To build on that, real quickly, I think they just do not have talent in the front court, and they don't really run the offense through the front court, and that poses a lot of issues for it limits what they can do. They can't funnel things through an Armando Bacot. They don't really run much through the post or high post, and they're just guys are just limited. Jalen Withers, Vin Allen Lubin, and Jalen Washington are not just go-to scorers. They lack you can't just throw it in there and expect they're going to score or make some move. Right. They're serviceable at times, but I think it's a glaring weakness. I mentioned this on another pod I was on. They're like 6th men, 7th men on a ACC team or a Power 4 team. Or Power 5 team. They're just not that good. And that's not fixable either. UNC missed on 5 or 6 centers and big men in the transfer portal, and it's kind of glaring its head now. So they're going to have to figure out a way. If they got to figure out which guy is going to be the option. I think we talked about this earlier, how it's per game basis and matchup based, and who has the hot hand, who's kind of playing better, who practiced better. But it's a concern, it's a glaring concern about which guy is going to be able to give them something offensively that's consistent.
Real quick, Spencer, before you go, I'll let you bounce off this. Number 1 bullet point I had on my notes here: roster construction. If you look at UNC's lineup up and down, it seems like multiple guys are playing out of position. I love Seth Trimble. He deserves to start. He needs to play 30 minutes a game, but he's 6'3". He's a 2 guard. He shouldn't be playing the 3, but on Carolina he has to. Yep. Drake Powell is 6'6", 185. He has to play 4, even 5 at some points for this Carolina team. He should be playing the small forward position more often than not. So you look at the roster construction, you have to go small if you're Carolina. And then a team like Auburn, like you said, Ross, one of the best in the country, their shortest player is 6'4" in their starting lineup. They start 6'4", 6'7", 6'6" at their 3 guard positions. You can't teach size. You can't fix it. You're right.
Wait until they play Duke. I mean, Duke's whole roster is like 6'4" to 7'2".
They're huge.
And their guards are big, and their like 3 and 4 are big. And Con Knipple, I guess he's their 3. I mean, he's 6'5", 6'6", 6'7".
He's bulky too. He's built.
It's a great point, Connor, because they're playing their 3-guard lineup, which is their best 3 guards, I think, right now, with Elliott, RJ, and Trimble are all small. Trimble plays bigger. He's got to play. He was the best player in Maui for UNC. And then Drake Powell had a breakout season. We'll get to him in a little bit. I mean, he needs to play because he is long and he's athletic. He gives you something, but you put him at the 4, it just kind of maintains the fact that UNC is undersized, but he needs to play more. And then Ian Jackson is a tall guard too, so I think getting him in there at the 2, well, you see an overall boost to team size, but because of how the roster's constructed, they're limited. They could really benefit from a 6'11", 7-footer or a athletic 6'9" power forward who could play the 4, but they missed on those targets in the transfer portal. I don't want to dwell on this because they missed and it's not there, but they have some unfixable issues. Spenser?
Yeah. That was a pretty good soapbox there, Ross, and I completely agree. I bet we didn't throw 2 entry passes in 3 games in Maui.
Can you blame them?
No. Well, I guess that's just to illustrate the type of offense that this team plays and the lack of personnel that they have to run through the post. When I was on the team, if you didn't look inside, in practice, coach was blowing the whistle and saying, why didn't you look inside?
Stopping the play mid-play, huh?
It's like we want it to go inside every single time, every play. And, this team's not built like that. Because of personnel, or maybe perhaps because of, it's hard to say, it's a chicken or the egg thing, I think, with Hubert Davis, whether he wants to play a 4-out, 1-in offense, or because of the personnel, he plays a 4-out, 1-in offense. But, there's no post-entry passes. That opens up a lot. Guys can cut. You can throw skip passes to the opposite side. It just opens up a lot of things, plus the defensive respect that you have to give a big man. So that's a difficult thing for Carolina this year, just not having the personnel. Lubin, I thought actually gave some really good minutes in both the Auburn game and the Michigan State game. Again, he's a little bit undersized, 6'8"-ish. If he's 6'10", 6'11", we're not having this conversation at all, I don't think. But at 6'8", it's just really tough to guard a guy like Broom from Auburn. And then there was a big dude. What was his name from Michigan State? Chaney, maybe. They had
a couple guys that could just jump out of the gym.
Guys. Chaney might have also been from Auburn. I can't remember. I just watched 2 games back to back. But on the offensive side of things, and Connor, you mentioned it earlier, one pass, one ball screen. Almost the entirety of the offense, I was really paying attention to this, is run in that middle third of the court, and there's very little action off the ball. And when I say very little action, there is no action off the ball. Maybe guys change sides of the floor, via the baseline, but it's done at a jog. It's not a cut to the basket. It's not a backdoor cut or anything like that. It's not a cut through the middle across someone's face. You end up getting one ball screen, and then maybe he rolls, maybe he pops the screener, and then we get 4 guys standing there watching somebody dribble it 8 times and, maybe get a good shot, but more often than not, just have to throw something up or take a step back or something like that. Really just a lot of dribbling and not a lot of movement. And I guess to kind of segue that into our defensive struggles, and what I would like to see more is more movement. If you looked at Auburn, they did not stand still on the offensive end for a second. Everybody is moving constantly. They are screening for each other off the ball. That gave us some big problems. I think Dayton did that as well. KU does that too. Teams that move off the ball in college usually have good offensive flow and are good scoring teams because it's just difficult to guard.
Yeah.
When guys don't stop moving. That's the number. What's the best way to get open? Move around. Help a teammate. Basic basketball.
I bet former UNC players like yourself and people that played under Roy Williams are just killing themselves watching some of this stuff with the lack of interior action, the lack of movement, the lack of cutting. the lack of any sort of freelance play. And just the not running the ball through the inside. But I mean, I don't blame this team for not running it through the post.
No.
But with that, kind of before the season, you're thinking about how fun this team could be. But in order to be fun, because the guards are exciting and they can score in bunches. And look, they've gone down a lot, but give them credit, they have come back in most of these games to make it a game, which is exciting, and they can score in bunches. So to kind of spin this into a little bit, we've looked at this at pretty doom and gloom. They have to hit threes, and they did against in Maui. I'm pulling up just the stats. These are just the 3-game stats of Maui. They shot 41.9% from three, and within that, you had Seth Trimble 6 for 13 from three, Ian Jackson 4 for 10 from three, R.J. Davis 7 for 20, which is not unbelievable, but it's solid. It's 35%, and then Drake Powell 6 for 9 from three. So they have two emerging shooters in Ian Jackson and Drake Powell. And Cadeau was 2 for 5, and I think he is very much improved as a shooter. And Seth Trimble, the amount of improvement from Seth and Elliott in shooting has been fantastic. But they're forced to do a lot of tough shots, a lot of late shot clock shots. But they've been pretty good, at least in the last 3 games in Maui. Let's just look at those 3 games. Even though the field goal percentage is not as good, 48.3%. My point is being this team can score. They should be able to get in transition more. They're fast. They can run teams. They're just missing a couple components. I think an athletic big man would be huge, and just some bigger guards. But they've shown some firepower. Let's transition this into Drake Powell and Ian Jackson. I think Drake Powell was the Michigan State game. He had 4 threes, and was just the confidence he's playing with. And it really just popped in Maui. He was just nailing it. He hit the corner 3, I think, against Dayton, that helped close the game there. And then he hit some. He's just shooting with confidence, which you don't see this early from a freshman. And I didn't expect to see it from him as well. And Ian Jackson as well. I think he needs to slow down a little bit. What have you seen out of those 2 guys, Connor? What do you like about them? You can go individually and have Spenser jump in.
Yeah, so like you said, it's really easy to view this and spin it from a negative standpoint, but there was some bright spots from Maui. And like you said, Drake Powell, Ian Jackson, 2 of the biggest bright spots. Powell led UNC with 18 points in that Michigan State game, and you touched on it, the confidence, the no hesitation when shooting the ball. And honestly, an element that I didn't expect to see from Drake Powell this early on is he hit a couple shots off the bounce. He would take guys one-on-one, get in that mid-range area, and hit a pull-up jumper, which I didn't really think he would be doing this early in his career. That's a big positive moving forward. And then Ian Jackson, he came in with confidence. From day one, he had the confidence. He'll take the ball to the rim. He'll shoot a 3 off a step back or whatever that may be. I think this UNC team needs both of those guys to be creators on the ball, create their own shot, because right now they lack that. Because Ian Jackson and Drake Powell, they both have size. They both have length. They're both athletic. They need them to be creators. And I didn't expect this UNC version of this team to need them to play that role this early on. But here we are. And you know what? They're stepping up. So that's a huge positive for Maui. The confidence and moving forward, especially in the next couple of years, it's going to be exciting to watch.
I'm not sure if Drake Powell or Ian Jackson are going to be on the team next year. Especially with the way.
No, they won't be one and done. No way. They're not getting enough playing time.
I heard,
you don't think so? Drake Powell's a top 10 pick right now.
I was about to say, I think in that Michigan State game, Corey Alexander was saying he's a lottery pick.
You might be right there. They're both to enjoy this then.
They're both first-round picks right now. Ian Jackson, let's jump in here, Spenser. Ian Jackson, I think, needs to slow down, but he's going to get better. He needs to kind of understand, his body and body control and play a little bit more in control. But you see the flashes, and if he could just go coast to coast and get to the rim and then complete the basket, it's a huge weapon. And then we've talked about Drake Powell, but yeah, the three-point shooting is I didn't see that coming this quickly. And defensively, he just looks different defensively. It stands out. Maybe it's because I'm looking for it, but he locks in on a player and affects a shot and gets a turnover off of a missed shot or just a steal. His length and speed and just defensive acumen is next level.
Yeah, he moves laterally really quickly. Drake Powell does. He's just got a knack for staying in front of a guy, and that's the hardest thing to do in defense, is to keep your guy in front of you if he's dribbling the ball, and he does that really, really well. And again, he's kind of crafty. He's got good hands. To his offensive game, I want to see him shooting the three as much as possible. Like, let's get this man 8 or 10 attempts from three per game. Like, seriously, let's run him out. Let's run him off of screens. Let's get him spotting up in the corner for kickouts. Even if it's like a kick ahead and it's 2-on-1 or something like that. Like, let's just let this guy shoot it, man, because I mean, all of the great Carolina teams that we've seen over the last 10, 15 years, and certainly the best Carolina team or the best run that happened by a Carolina team in the 2022 Final Four under Hubert Davis, has had a great three-point shooter. So got to have guys hitting threes. And, so far, RJ Davis has had a little bit of difficulty just with consistency. I think teams are keying on him really hard, which is expected. That's what they should do. But he's having a little bit of difficulty, like getting really open consistently, and he didn't quite have as much trouble doing that. I feel like he was just able to get more open shots last year and not quite have to do so much one-on-one creating and spinning around and dribbling it out, 25, 30 feet from the basket. Ian Jackson, get him driving to the bucket like every time. I've always kind of liked the term slasher to describe a really athletic, slightly larger guard who gets to the basket well. And I think Ian Jackson he's got an incredible pull-up jumper. He's got a great step back from three that he can hit. But let's get him going to the basket because he's pretty long too. He's 6'5" and super athletic. Yeah. So let's see him go up and try to dunk on somebody. And let's, Elliot Cadeau's not going to dunk on somebody. No shade to him, but it looked like he kind of tried a couple of times and he got blocked, especially late. Him and RJ both, and Seth Trimble all had shots blocked in the last 3-4 minutes and overtime against Michigan State, and they were killers.
It was brutal. It was brutal. Their failings in the lane. Real quickly, some stats. This is 7-game stats. This is the whole season so far. RJ is still leading UNC in scoring, but he's shooting 27.5% from three. He's taken 51 threes already. The next closest is Seth Trimble with 23 threes. Seth Trimble is shooting 52.2% from three, 12 for 23. He is by far UNC's best player. He's the most efficient.
Let him shoot it too, man.
Yeah.
I don't care. Let's get him his touches.
Let's get him his touches. Haven't really talked much about him. He was incredible at Maui. He made the all Maui team. He's been so much better from three. Kudos to him for putting the work. And I agree. Drake Powell didn't play as much leading up to Maui, but he was 5th most in minutes in Maui, I believe. And in 7 games, he is 7 for 15 from three, 46.7%. So you get him more shots, you would think, be way more productive from there. So there's so many nice pieces. There's so many good pieces on the perimeter. Yeah. Like you said, it's just got to come together. And do you have anything else to add on this topic, Connor? I'm going to move to one more thing.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to say about this is RJ Davis, you mentioned it, down year from three. Tom Izzo, his whole plan was to make him take tough shots. He was 6 for 18. Multiple shots were blocked in the lane, like we already touched on. I'm curious, how much was he the one that was the most negatively affected by Armando Bacot leaving and us not getting another reliable big man? Because I feel like last year with Armando and a couple years before that, you could play inside out, and all of a sudden RJ Davis is left wide open because they're doubling Armando Bacot, or he draws a ton of attention in the lane. I think RJ Davis was probably the one that was the most negatively affected by that. And it sucks because there's no interior threat for Carolina right now, so he's kind of forced to do it all or take the bad shots at the end of the shot clock, and that's why his percentages are down. But I just, I think he'll pick it up as the year goes on. He adjusts how to play, but it's just a major difference is what we've had the last couple of years. I think he's the one that's affected the most. Yeah,
there's a sense of gravity that Bacot, took a lot. He was so powerful inside. He was a good post player. So there's a sense of gravity that draw defenders in. They double team him. He got double teamed a lot over his 5 years, especially in the last 2 or 3 years. And that's why RJ Davis had an All-American ACC Player of the Year type season. And they're missing that. That's a huge part of not having a good post player or someone who can score effectively down there. They don't have to bring help. They don't have to worry about that. They can guard someone with one person. But when you're not passing the ball in either, that's gonna limit the attention that's drawn to the middle.
Yeah, and speaking of Armando Bacot, let's not forget the absolute rebounding machine that he was 12, 14, 15, 20 rebound games regularly. And this team does not have an outstanding rebounder. Jalen Washington gets some good rebounds. Withers gets some good rebounds here and there. Lubin, again, I mentioned him earlier. I'm about as high as I can be on Lubin.
He'll scrap. He gets in there.
We just don't have anybody who's going to go just snatch boards away. And I mean, that hurt against Michigan State. We gave up a ton of offensive rebounds. It hurt really bad against Auburn. Just gave up a ton of offensive rebounds. I mean, there was possession in the second half when we were like kind of getting within arm's length of Auburn. And I think we gave up, it was like off of a free throw. They missed the second one, gave up an offensive rebound, gave up 2 more offensive rebounds, and they ended up, I think, getting a dunk. Like 4 offensive rebounds in the same possession ending in a dunk that's pull your hair out territory.
All right, this leads to the final question on the Maui in the last 7 games before we jump into a quick thing on Alabama. All right, there's 3 big men really who are playing the most. Jalen Washington, Joan Withers, those guys are starting right now, and Vidal Lubin. I want each of you to pick which one's the guy, which guy deserves the majority of the minutes from those 3. I know we're kind of playing them equally, it seems. Which guy are you rolling with? Do you want to see kind of grow into a more dominant role? Which one do you like the best that can maybe potentially be something in a couple of weeks that we're talking about? Connor, I'll start with you.
The clear answer to me is Vidal Lubin, just for the effort. He's undersized. We said it, but he gets in there. He gets his hands dirty. He gets boards. Against Auburn, he had 10 and 9 in 24 minutes. He was a +2, and a lot of the team was negative in the plus minus that game. I thought he had a positive impact. The one thing against him is something you can't fix, and that's the size. He's a little bit undersized, but I'd rather have him on the floor scrapping for rebounds than Jalen Washington, who against Auburn played 16 minutes, 2 points, 1 for 4 field goals, -15, 3 turnovers. And then against Michigan State, he followed that up. Again, a non-factor, 13 minutes, took 1 shot. If you're starting at center for Carolina, you can't take 1 shot.
Yeah.
You're running a pick and roll almost every possession. So my answer is Vidal and Lubin, because at least on these dump-offs from R.J. Davis and Elliot Cadeau, Vidal and Lubin will consistently catch him and at least put it in the basket. There was multiple times Jalen Washington wasn't even looking for a lob or an entry pass, and it results in the turnover, tip pass, drop the ball. I think Vidal and Lubin's my answer through 7 games of the season.
He dunks the ball, too. He
goes
the
up
ball,
strong.
Yep.
And he's got a little girth down there for some rebounding, too. He's limited size-wise compared to Jalen Washington. But Jalen Washington's not getting many blocks. I don't see him really blocking the ball.
Michigan State had 50 points in the paint. So then what's the plus side of playing Jalen Washington if he's not going to protect the rim?
Defense is a huge issue. I hate kind of talking about defense in podcasts. I hate writing about it, too. Defense is something that's a huge issue with this team, too, that it's just difficult to talk about. Like, just get better. All right, Spencer, question to you. Same thing. Or elaborate on what Connor said.
I like Lubin as well. He gets rebounds. He dunks the ball. He sprints back and tries to play good defense. I'm sorry, the dog's barking in the background.
He agrees.
He agrees. Camera here, actually. Yeah, he's agreeing.
He hates the front court.
Yeah.
I do like Jalen Withers' athleticism, and I think he makes some plays here and there where, gosh, UNC really doesn't have that athletic of a player. So that's where I enjoy what Withers can bring. But there's some boneheaded mistakes. There's not consistency. But Withers is shooting some threes, too.
Yeah.
And I think we're not going to have to decide because I think Hubert Davis is going to roll with all 3 of them. But I would like him to play one a little bit more to give him comfort, to not get pulled out, and to see what happens when you give Lubin 25 to 30 minutes.
Did you see that Hubert went to a lineup of Elliot Cadeau, R.J. Davis, Seth Trimble, Ian Jackson, and then Jalen Withers? So 4 guards and Jalen Withers in that Michigan State game?
Yeah, we're small, man.
There was another lineup in there. Seth Trimble at the 1, Ian Jackson at the 2, Drake Powell at the 3, and then Cade Tyson and Ty Claude. That was to finish the first half. There was that crazy thing in the Michigan State game. Yeah, deep in his bag. There was that crazy thing at the end of the first half where there was that they thought they hit the 3, and so the time expired, and then the shot clock had expired, and so they had to bring the teams back out. Hubert could have changed that lineup. I mean, there was 2 seconds. Seth Trimble dribbled the ball 2 or 3 times and got a halfway decent heave. It was kind of weird to me that he left those 5 guys in there on that last 2 seconds.
Yeah.
He could have thrown in Cadeau, could have thrown in RJ. I mean,
Yeah. All right, we got to get out of here. I do wonder when Drake Powell begins to start the 4. I don't think starting is the most important thing. I think it's who's finishing and who's playing the most matters. And Drake Powell's been finishing the games, especially in Maui. Just came in, I think, in all 3 games and was getting the majority of the minutes in the second half when UNC made their runs and was nailing it from 3. But looking ahead to Alabama, 7 p.m. on ESPN, maybe 7:15, SEC ACC Challenge. I'll be in the house. We may have a Spenser, Connor, Mike Hardison podcast after that game, if y'all are game. But look, Alabama's kind of become a rival. They played them the last 3 seasons. They played them at the PK 85 in that like double, triple overtime game and lost. They played them last season and got knocked out of the NCAA tournament. Nate Oates kind of represents this new age NBA style game using the transfer portal, NIL, and running like a running gun offense. Quickly, give y'all's thoughts on this game, what this game could mean for UNC. We'll start with you, Connor, Spenser, and we'll get out of here.
Number one takeaway, there's going to be points. There's going to be offense. If a team goes down by 15, I guarantee there's going to be a comeback and the game will be close. I'm curious to see how they guard Mark Sears, who they put on him the whole game, because I feel like he's torched us in the games past. And then last thing, I think it's a big advantage that Carolina's playing this game at home. Alabama's had a bunch of tough games. They've won a bunch of tough games. They've only had one true road test at Purdue where they lost. So I feel like playing in the Dean Smith Center is a big deal. And if Carolina can avoid that slow start, get out to an early lead, get some momentum, I think they have a good chance to pick up a pretty big win against Alabama.
Yeah, it should be fun. I mean, this SEC Challenge is always fun. White out for the fans. They're wearing the throwback unis, the Jordan era jerseys, so that should be really fun. I mean, the Heels need a win really badly. Lost a game to a better team in Auburn. Played a close one, obviously, to Michigan State. Arguably should have won, could have won. But they need a win to bounce back. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, we played, 3, 4, 5 close games against some really, really good teams and then just got beat by a better one in Auburn. So it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, it's going to be all right. If we can beat Auburn, I don't want to say all is forgotten, but, you can forget some stuff.
Yeah, this is a big game.
Feel a lot better.
Big bounce back game. Big bounce back game in the Smith Center if they can get a win. I think Alabama's maybe not as scary as we thought in the preseason. They have some losses on their schedule already. It's a good chance. It's a good chance to get rid of those losses at Maui and bounce back and have a little bit better taste in your mouth heading into kind of the holiday stretch here. They have Florida too. Florida's a pretty good team as well. All right, guys, that's going to be it for us. A lot of podcasting this week. This is coming out this is coming out Tuesday, I believe, if you're listening to it. We also have a very extensive UNC coaching search podcast with me and Julian. We literally went through like 15 candidates and
got in
dove
the
deep
weeds.
into that. And
Awesome.
I recorded a quick podcast on the App State coaching decision with my buddy Robert Hogwood, diving into kind of the mentality of the App State fan base and with him firing Sean Clark after 5 seasons. So make sure you listen to those. Rate, review, subscribe, follow, like, and engage. Appreciate Connor for producing and Garrett on the graphics. And Spenser, we appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you next time after the Alabama game.